Hey everybody, it's Mark again, and today we're going to work on something other than a cuckoo clock. Kick back, relax, grab something to eat, grab something to drink, grab a cigarette. As you can see, I don't have one. I haven't had a cigarette in 3 days, so if I get a little cranky, you'll understand why. But I am chewing Nicorette gum. That's the only thing that helps me quit. And so let's get started. And I wanted to mention the seller who's in one of my groups, Mark Johnson. He did an excellent job packing these clocks up, both clocks and that section there, in the same box, bubble wrapped. He did an excellent job. I commend him for his packing. This is what is known as a shield clock. It has a porcelain face, a porcelain dial, and this one is complete with the side covers. The only thing it doesn't have is the pendulum and the weights. And I bought this off of eBay. Actually, I bought two of them off of eBay. Here's the other one. Same seller. He had three on eBay. This one doesn't have the sides. It doesn't have the pendulum, and it doesn't have the weights. But again, it's a porcelain face and porcelain dial shield clock. Now, typically, and this is this makes five antique shield clocks that I have. I have a modern shield clock, which is that one right up there. But I say modern, vintage. Typically, the clocks have cracked porcelain dials. This one has some cracks in it, or the face is broken. The third clock that he had for sale, he actually sent me the face and the dial. He kept the case, but as you can see, the shield itself is broken on this clock. So to have them where the base and the dial is not broken or has hairline cracks is hard to come across. However, I got both of these clocks for $40, then another $30-ish in shipping. For the two clocks, he put everything to include that broken base in the one box, so it cost me around $30-ish in shipping. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I don't know which clock I like better. This one does have some damage down here. It's cracked. This one, of course, is bigger. But we're going to take one and set it to the side. And we're going to be working on this one. So the first step is to take the hands off. Actually, the first step is to grab a container to put your parts in. I'm going to try to do this with the camera on the other side of me. This one looks like it has a nut that you unscrew to take the hands off. There's the nut. And then there's a washer for the minute hand. And then the minute hand. There's the washer. There's the minute hand. And then the hour hand. Now, the only thing I don't like about these clocks is the porcelain dial. There's two things I don't like about these clocks, and we'll discuss that here in a second. But the porcelain dial has got these little wires that typically there's holes in the face that those wires go into. But the only thing that was holding this dial on was the hands. Now there's 3 screws to take this porcelain face off. And also, let me turn the camera around so I can see what the camera sees. Also, there's a thin piece of wood. That thin piece of wood has got little bitty holes that these hooks go into. There's 2 hooks there, and there's 1 hook on the bottom. That thin piece of wood is typically broken. And when I unscrew this porcelain face from it, it will probably break. So I'm not going to unscrew the face from it. I'm just going to see if I can disconnect these hooks. That's what I don't like about them. The other 2 clocks that I have, I've been working on for quite some time. One is quite valuable. It's a Sorel clock. And a Sorel clock, it has 2 gongs. I'm going to go ahead and take the side covers off this, if I can. There we go. Here there's 1 gong. With the Sorel clocks, there's 2 gongs. These side covers, you got this little hook here that is supposed to go into the steeple, and that's what holds them on. And once you got the hook undone from that steeple, you could take the side covers off. So my next step is to try to remove the face. Back when they created these things, as you can see, it's ticking away. Back when they created these things, it was great. You know, it was a pretty good idea. But because this thing was probably made in 1880, 1875, something like that. But because it's 150 years later, this thin piece of wood is normally warped or it's broken. And again, the only thing that's holding this porcelain base on is these hooks and that thin piece of wood. And with my other clocks, I don't want, you know, most people, when they grab a hold of the clock, they grab a hold of it by the face. And if there's a little bit of weight on the movement itself. So if you grab a hold of the clock by the face and these hooks come out of this thin piece of wood, or this thin piece of wood breaks, well, you just dropped your clock. And so I don't want my other clock to drop when I grab a hold of the face. And so that's why I'm modifying it to suit my needs. Anyway, I'm going to remove these hooks off camera and we'll get back to you. I just need to be able to look, and I can't look with this camera in front of me, between me and the clock. These hooks did not want to come out, so I found it easier taking this and pulling the nails out. So that's what I did, and so now I could take the face off. These hooks did not want to come out of their little holes. And as you can see, this is cracked. And the only thing that's holding it together is these 3 screws, which normally on my other clocks, the dial that I told you had those 3 wires, they're supposed to have 3 wires, they hook into where those 3 screws are on the base itself. And then on my other clocks, the only thing that's holding it on originally was the hands. And so I didn't want that to be the only thing that's holding it on. There's a count wheel inside here, and there's a lot going on with this. Here's a spring for the I think it's something to move parts around with. There's a spring right here that has got to do with the gong. That's what keeps the gong with tension on it. Typically, with these wooden plate movements, and it's the same way with this one, you have to take the back off in order to get to the movement. And so let me see if I could pry the back off here. That's easy to do. Well, it was on the other end. There we go. There we have the gong. and what appears to be a couple of screws that weren't doing their job. With the wooden plate movements, you have your time side, rear plate, and then you have your strike side rear plate. You can work on the time side, or you can work on the strike side. And what holds them in, there's a nail here and there's a nail here. And once you pull that nail out, you can remove this plate, and then you can remove all the gears, except for you have to take this section off first. And there's on a cuckoo clock, it's called the minute wheel with minute pinion. This is called something else, but we'll just call it the minute wheel with minute pinion. There's a tapered pin that comes out first. And then you could take the hour pipe off. Well, after I remove this washer, you take the hour pipe off, and then there should be a tension washer underneath this minute wheel with minute pinion, which there is, just like in a antique cuckoo clock. And if your hands are too loose, that's because this tension washer is too loose. If your hands are too tight, that's because this tension washer is too tight. Then this section right here is what strikes the hour and half hour. And if your hands are not going straight up and down or right at the 6, then you have to adjust this part right here, this wire, so it trips right at the 6 or right at the 12. That is the adjustment, this wire right here. But whatever you adjust here, you are also messing with the parts that are inside. So make sure that you grab this with a pair of pliers before you bend this, or you're going to adjust what's inside, and you don't want to do that. So I need to take the count wheel off, and to take the count wheel off, you just remove this spring right here. The spring's got a little bit of pressure on it. You just move it out of the way, and then you can pull the count wheel off. Typically, but I still should be able to do it. There we go. And we inspect this count wheel, inspect it for burrs, because as this lever here goes into the notches on the count wheel, if there's a burr in these slots, that could prevent this lever that I'm moving up and down from going into the notches. And we'll say your clock strikes 9 o'clock and it's supposed to stop. Well, there might be a burr in the notch at the 9 o'clock position. Now, I don't know whether this is 9 or not. I'm just pointing. And so it might hit that burr and might come right out and it might go strike to 9:30, and it won't be a burr, so your clock will get off. So make sure you inspect all these notches for any burrs that are in the flat spot of the count wheel. There's two different people, a friend of mine and a group member of mine. The group member discovered it. They both were at the 9 o'clock position. Two different manufacturers. One was a Herbert Hur, another one was a different manufacturer, but they were both at the 9 o'clock position, where it struck 9 and then it struck 9:30, and that's because both count wheels had a burr in the 9 o'clock position notch. I personally, and I don't know this for a fact, but I personally think that maybe one company makes these count wheels, and so both clocks had a defect on the count wheel, and so that at the same position. So I'm thinking that's why a different clocks, different makers of clocks, and that's why I'm thinking that maybe one manufacturer manufactures a count wheel, and another manufacturer manufactures the movements. Before you continue, you're going to want to take, and I just got through doing that, you're going to want to take pictures all the way around, and make sure you view those pictures. You might want to take them at different angles. Take a picture here, and then take a picture here. Same way with this. Take a picture like this, and then take a picture like this. And do this all the way around. That way you know how to put this thing back together. And pay a particular attention to these like springs to see where they go, what the purpose is. The purpose behind this spring is to make sure that this lever goes into the count wheel. And this bridge here has got 2 screws. But what we're going to do, we're going to take, if I could, I would take the chain off, and I could do that. I'm just going to have to put some pressure and sit there and make this thing go down. That way I can take the hook off this chain. So I'll come back. There I have it taken away, and I'm going to continue to allow it to tick away until that hook is down far enough so I could take it off. Here's my Sorel clock that I was talking about. There's 2 gongs on this thing. It's supposed to sound like bees when it goes off. They don't necessarily sound like bees to me, but same setup. There's 2 little hooks that holds that thin piece of wood, but I am modifying my clock so it's stronger. I put the fragile parts over here, that way they don't get broken. But putting a slight bend in the hook, I'm able to get the hook off the chain, and now I can pull the chain off. Now on the strike side, it's already down enough, and I could go ahead and take the chain off after I do a function test. You notice the hammer for the gong, it goes up versus down. And that's because the gong itself, the way it's designed, the hammer sits in this area and it goes up to hit the gong. The way I do the function test is lifting that lever, or you can lift this lever. You could also put all these parts back on. Find your minute hand and put it on, putting pressure on the chain. Turn the minute hand to see where it goes off. I'm going to do that again. You notice it goes like 27 minutes till the hour. I'm going to flip the hand around because that could cause a difference. And I'm going to do the function test again. It's still past the hour when it goes off. So that means that I'm going to have to adjust this lever so it goes off earlier. And you want to make sure that these pins are straight up and down, because if they're bent or if they're loose, that could cause an issue also. So again, I need to adjust this wire. I just so happen to have a pair of wire benders here, so I'm going to hold one side with one pair of the wire benders. Remember, I told you you don't want to adjust what's inside, and I'm going to bend, and I don't know which way to go, so I'm just going to go one way and pray that I get lucky. And so, put everything back on and try it again. Now you have to go slow because remember I told you this wheel is what slows this, is what puts pressure on the minute pipe here. I'm closer, but it needs to be adjusted some more. That's almost straight up and down. Let's try it again. Nah. I'm going to do it one more time. I could live with that. When you put the dial and everything back on, it might be a minute till the hour. I might check it again later, but it's a lot closer than what it was. So getting back to what we were doing earlier, I have to remove this hook from the chain and pull the chain through. Now there's some numbers on this, on these plates. It says 18, and over here it says 18. I don't think that has anything to do with the date. I just think it has to do with this size of movement. They grabbed at these movements, and they might have been working on bigger movements at the time, but they would grab like this plate out of a box, and they were working on 18 style movement, and so they had to make sure that they grabbed the right plates. So anyway, like I said, removing this pin, this nail, and then you could slide the plate forward for the time side and allow it to come out. And after you clean this up, get it shiny, you want to take toothpicks to these holes to make sure that there's no grime and stuff in there. And you will notice that they put metal bushings, I would call it, inside these wooden plates. Even though it's a wooden plate, it has metal bushings. And so you have to clean those out. And you already got your pictures, so you can start taking this thing apart. You have your escapement wheel. Your second wheel. Of course, your birch and crutch assembly. And Typically the time side won't come out because the strike side great wheel is holding it in. So you have to take the strike side apart. But before you could take this plate off, you can't pull this plate out because of these levers. So taking a screwdriver to take this bridge off, there's a little bit of rust. This thing hasn't been taken apart in a while. And then you have your gong that it goes, the wire for the gong goes to that steeple right there. I'm hoping to get this part without having to take, there's a brass flat bar right here. I'm hoping to take it apart without having to take that brass piece off. I might have to take that brass piece off. I'm going to put this back together because I want to show you something. This lever right here that goes inside the count wheel, this tab right here is lifted by the part that's on the other side of this piece that is tripped by the minute pipe. I'm just going to go ahead and take this brass piece off because it'll be easier to install it all back together. Stand by. Just common tools help you with things. I use these to take hands off, same way with these, but I also use them to take nails out. And in this case, I was able to put this underneath this brass piece to get it out. And now I push it out of the way, and now I can take these levers out. But this lever right here is what lifts this lever right here. This lever right here, which is part that goes into the count wheel, and there's a section on it that the third wheel warning pin hits. It fits over a pin, this pin right here. Same way with this, there's a brass piece that I'm going to have to take off to get to the other lever if I choose to take this other lever out. But now that I got that part removed, I can remove this nail and pry this strike side plate away. And one thing I also have to do is there's a pin that holds this, there's a tapered pin that holds this pinion gear onto the great wheel. I need to take that off. Magnetic tools, everything sticks. This thing hasn't been taken apart in a while. There's the third wheel with warning pin. Let's see if I could get this off. Without breaking something. It might not come off. This is the second wheel, and this lever here is what goes into the second wheel. Just like that. And then the third wheel with warning pin, when it's done striking in this case, when it's done striking, that goes into the B of the, I'm just trying to do this, that goes into the V, and then the third wheel warning pin hits the end of that lever. Well, it should. Hits the end of that lever, like so. And then when it goes into warning, this comes up, and the third wheel warning pin is hitting this lever until after the minute hand drops off of this piece right here. It's not going to allow me to take this out because of that. That has to come off, and I have to figure it out. So I'm going to do that off camera so I can see. Because it has to come off in order for me to take this plate off. And it hasn't been off in a while. Getting out my heavy-duty magnifier glass here. Put some light on the situation. there was still part of a pin in that hole, so I took a small drill bit and pushed it through, and now that comes off. So now I could take this plate off, strike side, time side, and now all that's left to do is to clean this bad boy all up. I hope y'all are enjoying this video. I hope you hit that subscribe button, because it's free to do so. Doesn't cost you a darn thing. And you'll see more videos from me, whether you like them, you hate them, enjoy them. I get a lot of people that thank me for my videos. So now it's time to put all these parts into my ultrasonic cleaner and clean them up. Now the metal is being cleaned in my ultrasonic cleaner. It's time to clean up the case. Whether you want to use New Life Furniture Mask or Howard Bead and Wax or Old English Oil or Amish Wood Milk or motor oil or whatever you want to use is totally up to you. You want to make sure that afterwards you clean out those pivot holes, like I said. In this case, I'm going to use Howard Bead and Wax. Why? That's just what I grabbed. I have all the other stuff. So, put some on and shake up the bottle a little bit. And it's a wax on, wax off, Karate Kid type thing. And so you just rub it in as much as you want, wherever you want, however much you want, whatever you do. And what you can't get to, you might want to use a paintbrush, a toothbrush, or a brush of some sort, and work in the little crevices that you can't get to with the rag. And using this Howard Bead and Wax, it's not going to hurt the spring. It probably helped out the spring. The spring is all rusted. The hardware's rusted. You just don't want to damage the spring in doing what you're doing. So I'm going to continue this and do the whole case, and we'll get back to you. Before, after. It looks pretty good. There is some kind of a maker's mark right here. It looks like I don't know, like a W. Maybe it's a maker's mark. Maybe you could see that. I don't know what it is. But using any kind of wood finish, oil of whatever, will soak into the wood and revive it. And that's the whole purpose behind this. Now the case is all cleaned up. I wiped it on, I wiped it off. I don't know about Howard Bead and Wax, but if you use New Life Furniture Mask and you wipe it on and you don't wipe it off, it will discolor your wood. Makes it look really nasty. So make sure that after you wipe it on, that you wipe it off also. And so, remember I told you the next step is you have to clean out every one of these holes. Now I can sit here and do this with my hands, but I don't want to. I have a drill. And for the bigger holes, I cut these Q-tips in half. You cut them in half, that way they don't bend on you as easily. And you just run this thing back and forth in the hole until you are satisfied with the results. And change Q-tips. They're cheap. And that's why you cut them in half. And again, you cut them in half so they don't bend on you. And it's less work on you doing it this way. I'm letting the drill do all the work. The Q-tip is not quite clean, so I'm going to put another one in. And I can live with that. So for where you can get a Q-tip in, use the Q-tip. If you can't get a Q-tip, I'm just cleaning off some of this cleaner that furniture polish that I put on it. If you can't get a Q-tip in, use a toothpick. Do the same thing with a toothpick. And that Q-tip broke on me, but I can still use it. If your drill don't close and you'd want to cut these toothpicks in half, because I got the barbecue skewers here. If your drill don't close, then you'll have to use a smaller tip drill. And here in this case, the tip of the toothpick broke off, so I have to push it out. But I'm going to continue cleaning every one of these holes up with the method that I just showed you. And if your toothpicks are not long enough to go through the wood at an angle, with the Dremel on, with your drill on, make it smaller. Now I got all the pivot holes all cleaned out. And don't forget, you have to clean out the verge and crutch assembly pivot hole. A lot of people tend to forget that. I took a toothpick, a bigger toothpick, to the outside of the pivot holes and put it in my drill, and you could see it shined them up. And so the case is all done. Now it's time to inspect the parts. And I was inspecting the parts, and this is called a lantern pinion. And what it is, it's holes drilled in the very top and the very bottom, and they put little wires down in. Sometimes they soldered them, and then other times they would make the end of the wires kind of flat, so when they pulled the wire down, the flat spot went into the hole, which made it harder to come out. And so I'm inspecting these, and there's this one, you should be able to see it, that sticks out farther than the other ones do. I try to pull it out. It doesn't want to come out. I'm going to call it good. But I need to polish up the pivots, and this thing is old. I use a homemade cleaner, and so that's probably why it's not as shiny as other people's stuff. They cleaned it up. That's all I'm concerned about. I can sit here with a brass or copper brush in my Dremel and make it shiny. As long as it functions, that's the only thing I care about. And as long as it don't have a bunch of gunk all over it. Want to make sure that the ratchet wheels are working properly, which they are. Now, there's not ultrasonic cleaners. I never did pre-wash these things. Ultrasonic cleaners are like dishwashers. They're only going to get it clean to a certain point. I don't care what kind of cleaner you use, whether you use a homemade cleaning solution or whether you use the high dollar stuff. I mentioned this before. Back when Esler Rose was in business, I bought a container of that high dollar stuff. It's back before I had an ultrasonic cleaner. My brother-in-law, who was a veterinarian, he had an ultrasonic cleaner. I borrowed his high dollar ultrasonic cleaner, bought some Esler Rose cleaning solution. I was not happy. Whether I got a bad container, I don't know. All I know is I have never bought another container of store-bought cleaner. And this is the rag with the Howard beat and wax that I used earlier. And it has Old English oil in it, has New Life furniture mask in it, has the Amish wood milk in it. There's a bunch of stuff in this rag. But I was just cleaning the gunk off of some of this stuff. And because it's a cleaning solution afterwards I'm going to have to wipe it off, because if I don't, it's going to continue to clean and it might eat up my parts. I don't know. It's made for wood. It's not really made for brass, but it is what it is. Anyway, I'm going to finish cleaning up these parts and we'll get back to you. I went ahead and cleaned up all the parts with my Dremel using a wire brush. It used to be about this big around that I bought at Walmart, that I don't think it was made for a Dremel, because it works, but I don't know if it was made for a Dremel. Most of the wire brushes, brass wire brushes for Dremels, they fall apart within a matter of seconds. This one lasted the entire movement. And so I still have to clean up the chains and fix all the chain links that need fixed. So there will be a part 2 to this video. I hope y'all are enjoying this video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You know, YouTube, back before I started, well, back before I got 1,000+ subscribers, they paid fairly decent money. And I've always told you, I'm not in this for the money. I'm in this. The money would be nice, don't get me wrong. I could use some extra money. Who couldn't? But I do this because I want to help people out. I don't want people to have the same issues that I had when I started repairing clocks. You know, back before YouTube and Facebook, it was a VHS tape that I watched over and over and over again. Rewind, pause, watch it, rewind, pause, watch it. And so I hope that I'm helping people out. I know I get a lot of positive feedback, but I also get some negative feedback, and so I'm not too worried about the negative feedback, because I get more positive feedback than I do negative feedback. But anyway, I hope y'all are enjoying this. I'm sorry I'm putting things away while I'm talking to you. So stay tuned for part 2. And may God bless each and every one of you.